phase one was well, we call right now phase one, but originally it was going to be NFV. And it came, well, even the term NFV is very recent. It's about 2 years ago when we a few operators that were working on what we were calling by different names by that moment. People were talking about software networks, networks in the cloud, network virtualization. People were talking about different terms. So a few operators and very few vendors got together in Paris in particular, and we had an initial meeting. We discussed about what we were doing, in which direction we were moving. It was about essentially implementing network functions in software and applying cloud principles for this. That was the general address that we were following with different approaches and different styles, but it's the general approach. And well, in particular, after some discussions, we coined the term network function virtualization to refer to what we were, because there was a general agreement that it was not exactly cloud. It was not exactly only virtualization, the network function. It was something a little bit more than that, by a combination of it. So phase one was started there inside ETSI, because it was by the moment the standards body that looked more flexible to us and more adequate to host our ideas. Mm-hmm. And well, our main goal by that moment, that frankly is very close to what we have right now in phase two as well, was not to produce a full set of standards. It was about defining the concepts and stimulating the industry to move in the direction we wanted to move. Okay. Which is, as I said, applying the cloud principles to the provision and deployment and the management of network functions. That was the goal of phase one. I think that we managed to do this. We managed to make a high impact and to gather a high interest from the industry, and managed to agree among the participants, among a number of participants that grew much faster than we expected. And that caused, during certain moments inside the phase two, caused a couple of, let's say, growth crises. Because the ways of making agreements, the ways of building consensus were originally thought for a smaller and better coerced groups. Well, we managed. We agreed on a set of architectural principles. We agreed on a set of general guidelines that were not intended to be fully standard, to be full standards, in the sense to be full normative with a very clear and precise language, and with this careful use of words like the must and the should and the can and the may.
Yes.
But more, as I said, a general framework, a general set of principles, and to explore the directions in which we thought the industry will move. In parallel to that, something that was very important from phase one as well was that we tried to make it very practical. Mm-hmm. And we established what we call the proof of concept framework, with the idea precisely of stimulating the industry to come with solutions, demonstrate them, showcase them, go to different trade shows, go to different experimental networks, go even and make a temporary deployments, showing precisely that the principles that we're advocating for were applicable, and showing the applicability of the technologies and the architecture to different use cases. And collecting these results, making them public, and building general awareness.
Sure.
In most cases, I think we were reasonably successful. And when we end this phase one, and we were about to conclude the documents, and we were about to prepare the conclusions of the lifetime that we had for the ETSI group, that it was 2 years.
Yeah.
There was a general agreement that at least there was a core of specifications that had a nuclear house.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have a clear place in which we could ask and say, hey, you, body X or body Y, take care of this. And that, that those specifications were precisely the core of what we were thinking that it should be NFV, that were the basic interfaces dealing with the orchestration, dealing with how a service could be composed by different virtualized functions and by communicating them. So that is when we decided that phase 2 would be likely to be required. We asked the community, we asked inside our community, and well, we made some external contacts as well, and we found that in general it would be a wise move. And then is where we started phase 2.
Got it. Okay. No, I mean, you mentioned obviously with the phase 1 part of it, like you said, I mean, there are a lot of, it seemed like initially there weren't as many perhaps companies involved, but as the phase went on, it seemed like at least more and more companies got involved with this, whether they're vendors, carriers. That had to have been a huge challenge, just trying to, like you said, kind of manage all of these various interests. I'm sure everybody has great ideas, but at the end of the day, you have to have kind of a set plan that is a reasonable, and that's easy to follow. And so I'm sure that seems like that's probably the biggest challenge, was just trying to get all these great ideas together into a coherent master plan that can be, kind of a set of not necessarily standards, but at least rules to follow in the process.
Yeah, no, it has been interesting times. We were trying to define rules. Well, for sure, ETSI was helping us because ETSI has a very well-established set of rules. But on the other hand, we were trying to force or to stretch those rules a little bit beyond, because we wanted to be rather dynamic. Standards bodies are very often criticized to be slow, moving at a very slow pace, being too formal, getting stuck with the formalisms, and we wanted to avoid that. Yeah. Because we wanted to make this a quick and strong impact on the industry. And it was curious because we were at the same time trying to follow the rules, but at the same time inventing new ones, and working very hard with the people from ETSI that were extremely helpful to us in finding new mechanisms that were in spirit as formal as the formal rules, but in practice they were much more agile. And this is something that we found extremely useful for us, because it helped us in moving fast, but without losing losing to have our feet on the ground. So we were in connection with reality, and that you have to follow a reasonably open and careful process, because at the end, otherwise, it's just what a bunch of friends have written on a paper, and we wanted to make something much with much higher relevance in that sense.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I guess that's a key thing, because it does seem like, when it comes to the virtualized world, at least as it comes from the IT or perhaps the data center space, is that it seemed it was a much more malleable type of environment there. There weren't like a set of standards that people had to follow. I mean, obviously in the telecom space, as you know from your other job as well, that in the telecom space, I mean, standards are key. I mean, 3GPP sets out standards, and these things are there, and you have to follow them, or there's no interoperability and things like that. It seems like, at least in the virtualized world, that there can be perhaps a little bit more on-the-fly adjustments that can be made. And so perhaps that did, like you said, did seem like it made it perhaps easier for you guys to maybe not set things in stone, perhaps, because again, these things can be a little more adjustable on the go.
Yeah, well, when you think about the virtualized world, in the virtualized world, things are more adjustable because you have standards for doing so. I mean, if you think, for example, all the virtual machines that you're moving around are based on essentially the description of the virtual machines is made using OVF, mostly standard. The point is that, yes, it's true that you can deploy some adapter in the middle if you need to do something, but at the end, you have to rely as well in some rules that guarantee you that you can move from one provider to another provider. And apart from that, at the end, if what you want to deploy is precisely communicating systems, and you want to guarantee that they are communicating systems that are able to provide a worldwide service in an open way, and you are not allowed, because this is something that is probably is the curse and the blessing, somebody says, of the telco world, is that we are not one band company, one man bands.
Yes.
It's not that I have my systems talking to my internal databases, providing my users identify with my directory, and that I connect using my messaging, my integrated whatever. My problem is that I have to connect with the people that are competing with us in all countries in my footprint and worldwide.
Yeah.
And I had to allow my users to migrate. Depending on the country, that depends about even in the orders of hours, to say, I don't want to be with you any longer, and move to another competitor, and I had to allow them to migrate in terms of hours. I guess, I'd love to see that happening in what is called the so modern internet service. I don't know, but if I wanted to move everything I have in Facebook to Google Plus, for example, how long would it take? Yeah. Why? Well, essentially because we are obliged to use standards. They are not, because they have everything is a single monolithic service, or the other way around. Is take it or leave it. I mean, this is my API. You don't like it, forget about it. This is the situation. So we are in that position, right? And we have to somehow reconcile both worlds, and the virtualization, this agile, plug and play, and APIs-like approach when it deals with internals, but connecting and attaching everything like this with external standards interfaces.
Well, I mean, I guess so. How is that progress coming along? Because again, it does seem like that, at least from a standards issue, a standards problem, you guys are doing a lot of work, but it seems like the vendor community and the market itself is really driving. I mean, operators are announcing that they want to have NFV in their networks pretty rapidly here, but it still seems like there is this kind of, that the things are still not quite set in stone to make this work right. I mean, is that the ongoing challenge for not just ETSI, but for the whole industry, is to make sure that, that obviously you want to have progress, but you have to make sure that that this is smart progress, not just throwing stuff out there and hoping you can fix it later.
No, here there's something that when we started all this NFV, something that we used to show was precisely a diagram of how we saw the innovation cycle in the telco world. It was about you originally came with an idea. You then go to a standards body, you fight for 3, 4, 5 years discussing about the standardization, and then you could start implementation. And then you go for conformance testing, and then interoperability testing, and then you can deploy. That normally we're talking about cycles in the best case 5 years, in the normal case of 8 years. And this is something that we were aware we could afford any longer. And as I said before, that we were setting the rules and we were using them. In this case, it's a little bit the same. I mean, we have been trying to explore new ways of achieving these innovation cycles inside the industry, exercising them at the same time. And precisely these POCs and this way of collaborating, of setting a very tight schedule to produce the principles, in a very direct collaboration between vendors and operators. Well, I would say this approach has paid. And this is something that right now, frankly, I would not say that we still have at hand either 100% perfect products to provide this, like probably the ones that were available for the radio deployments when we start with 3G or something like that. and that I would not say that services that have been announced by many operators, among them ourselves, are 100% in agreement with all the principles, because we have been, as I said, learning about the new innovation process that we were inventing it. On the other hand, we are very glad that we managed to do what you mentioned, precisely in 2 years' time to have a bloom of announcements, products, services, pilots, etc.
Yeah, it's been impressive to watch. I mean, obviously, the past 2 years, like you said, have been amazing in the rapid uptake and the rapid announcements that come from the NFV space. I mean, 3 or 4 years ago, this was not even a topic, at least broadly discussed, and now it seems like it's just come out of nowhere. Operators are announcing, vendors are announcing. You guys are moving quickly at ETSI. It's been impressive to watch, and like you said, though, it is. We're probably not quite there 100% yet, but obviously, it seems like the market is moving at least in the right direction for the most part.
Yeah, and well, I must confess that in that respect, you feel like changing a little bit the world, and this is really, really rewarding,
Sure,
and
yeah.
And as I said, what something that I try to say very much is that maybe that in 5-10 years time we will be looking at how the common network infrastructure practice will evolve, and probably things will not be as we imagine them right now. But I think that the advent of NFV will imply a real breakthrough in the process, mostly in shortening this process that it was so lengthy and well, it was somehow ossified in the sense that everybody was used to this. Well, has been and still happens. All this has to bring a strong cultural change, not only inside operators, inside vendors as well, inside integrators, because all of us are used to long innovation cycles, long life cycle of a certain technology, long periods of testing, deployments, exploitation, and re-engineering, deployments again. And well, this is going to change, and we have to get used to much shorter cycles.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I know there's a lot of talk outside or inside the industry about, the move to 5G, for instance. And it seems like, we just got the 4G and already we're talking about 5G. And the timeline there seems like it's shorter than it was from 3G to 4G. But again, when you look at the new world of virtualization, perhaps virtualization can allow that more rapid time frame for things to evolve. I mean, obviously, it's a little bit different world, but it seems like things are moving a little quicker at least.
Well, definitely. I mean, I'm involved in the European initiative for 5G as well. Essentially because, well, this year in Europe, we have managed to convince the people who were supporting this initiative that virtualization was an essential component of 5G as well. That 5G is not only, for sure, 5G is about a new mobile network, and a new, a new pervasive network, fully pervasive network. But we believe that to do so, the infrastructure must be heavily relying on virtualization and on software principles.
Yeah.
And this is something that for sure will be part of that evolution.
Yeah.